Welcome to PCA 2024, brought to you by So I'm gonna be honest. I don't really care if that camera's on. I blocked a time frame to sit and talk with my friend. And so I guess
How close am I supposed to have this to my face?
I wouldn't go down to your nuts, but
No, here.
no, I wouldn't go there.
But I don't have to have it here like I'm choking on this thing.
Yeah.
All right, good.
somewhere in between,
Yeah, somewhere in between.
right? Unless you start talking out of your behind, then you got to kind of stick it back there a little bit. But I gotta ask. The first question is, do you ever sleep?
Yeah, I don't seem to do a lot of it, do I?
I mean, you're going down Nicaragua all the time,
Yeah,
right? Then you're doing events when you get a chance to do events.
not a lot of events, but
And
yeah.
and then you're creating all these things, and I'm glad that you finally embrace the lancero lifestyle. I know that's a passion project.
Oh
of yours.
yeah, can't wait.
I like how in your comments, I'm only making as many as people order, and that's it. Don't
That's
think
it.
I'm making any more
I'm not.
extra. They're not going to hang around the house.
Yeah.
I can see when you're picking your
Which
allotment
is
of
really,
cigars.
which is really unusual because like a lot of companies too, these small companies, they don't make stuff until they get orders for it, right? And whereas for us, I've always been an inventory guy, a production steady state guy. So like Wagashi that we're going to start shipping next month, we started making Wagashis in Q4 of 22. You know what I mean? The Sin Compromiso number 4, the Robusto, we've been making that for almost 10 months. So I have a large inventory made in the cool rooms. But when it comes to the Lancero, no, I'm making that to order. I am not making.
You're not stockpiling.
I am
it.
not making $250,000 worth of Lanceros hoping people buy them. I am not doing that shit. That's not for me.
That's funny. Now I know it was very exciting for you that I chose Wagashi as my #1 cigar for.
I was surprised by
For-
that one.
I got to tell you, it was.
You were the only one. But I think for a lot of, again, because every site and how they do things is different, because it was originally considered an exclusive and it was the initial drop, I wasn't eligible. But I was surprised you chose that one.
It just had something. It was one of those things because I've got my little travel humidor right next to my desk, right, a little wine door kind of thing,
Right.
and I've got shelves of stuff, and I'll always have some silver mesas. I'll have some Syncomps in there. I'll have some reds and some blues in there and some black. I just have the whole thing.
Right.
Like if I'm almost done, I'm gonna go work in the shop and grab an Omega. But when I grabbed that Wagashi and I started smoking it, it made me stop paying attention to what I was paying attention to. And so I said, well, is this lightning in the bottle? Is this one is it because it was the first one I
Right. Is it
had?
a special?
Right.
Right.
And so I got that same experience
I think
every time.
that's really important for like cigar smokers to know about Wagashi. So like you see Brulee Blue is the one that gets all the online love, right? Blue, 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 blue.
Which is amazing.
Right. Blue's a great cigar, but you got to understand something about Brulee Blue. The guys that are hardcore, I should say the people, the folks that are hardcore Brulee people, the blue isn't their favorite.
Really.
No, they'd much rather smoke the Toro and the Robusto. The people that really favor the blue are the people that rarely smoke mild Connecticut shade cigars, and the blue is the one that, oh, when I want something like that, blue fits the bill. So with Wagashi is meant more profile-wise for the people that really are into the regular brulees, because the Wagashi is a slightly milder, slightly creamier, slightly more nuanced, slightly more delicate, slightly more refined kind of experience. So if you're a blue person, I would tell you, don't rush out and buy a box of Wagashi. Buy a couple singles and see if it works for you. Because if you're expecting just a bigger blue, you're going to be disappointed with.
Agreed.
You're going to be disappointed with Wagashi, because that's not what Wagashi is. Wagashi is a more delicate, refined kind of brulee experience.
But there's something, and for lack of a better word, there's a ting. There's There's just something
Yeah,
different
well, look,
that
didn't want to just take the same cigar and put a green band on it and
Right.
charge you $2 more.
Right.
That's not the plan. There has to be something that there's a reason for it to exist. So it's definitely different.
And I know you said the name comes from some Oriental pastry, but I'm telling you, it's South Carolina language for Wagashi sure is good. That's what it is. I'm telling you, I'm going to go to my deathbed
But you
knowing that that's
also
what it
you
is.
smoke a lot of the cigars that are. There's a lot of cigars that you like that are on the milder end of the spectrum, whereas Steven tends to smoke on the heavier end of the
Right.
spectrum, right? I see the cigars that when you look at his list of top cigars every year and you look what's in the mix, it's not that he doesn't like some of the milder ones, but you have more milder ones on the softer side high on your list. He has more of the heavier, more robust, spicier, and that's just the way. That's just human nature. We all have what we like and
Right.
we dislike. So for you, I can see how, even though I was surprised, I was more surprised just because it was just so fresh. Okay. But I'm not actually surprised that you like Wagashi, knowing the other type of cigars that you like to smoke.
It's kind of interesting with me that my mood decides what I want to smoke, and what I'm doing decides what I want to smoke.
Right.
If I'm just mellow and chill, and I want a cigar that's just kind of going to be there, and I'm going to enjoy it, but I'm
Yeah.
not going to pay attention to it, I might go with something lighter or milder. But if I want something when I'm wanting to smoke a cigar,
Yeah.
right, that's going to be something
I
that's
always
going
say
to
that about
give
Sin
me.
Compromiso. Sin Compromiso is a cigar that you should sit down and smoke. You're wasting a Sin Compromiso if you're smoking in the truck, if you're smoking it while you're working on a project in the garage and you're tinkering. It's a wrong time to light that cigar because you're not getting your money's worth. Because the money's worth is in that little bit of nuance and those more delicate transitions. It requires a little bit more attention to fully appreciate. And I think Wagashi's the same way. Just the same way as we've had this conversation multiple times. I think the best way to enjoy a still well is to not try to power your way through it. You really want to slow down a little, focus a little more. Because if you just smoke it like you'd smoke whatever you were going to smoke on a Tuesday afternoon in the middle of the day, I think you miss a lot of what's there.
I agree.
You know what I mean?
I
Whereas,
agree.
like an Magaga cigar, you light, you relight, you put it down, you light it a half hour later, doesn't matter. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Now I'll tell you, with your construction of a cigar, I talk about the gas station test,
Right.
right?
The piss test.
And so Chief and I were sitting there talking one night on the Chief Talk show, and he was like, "Well, I don't know if the cigar would last 15 minutes or if it." And so we actually got into
15 minutes is too long.
we got into a big debate
Yeah.
of, and it was just a father-son back and forth thing.
Yeah.
They were just watching on camera, and so we actually did a test.
Right.
We got 3 cigars each, and so we lit the first cigar, we'd smoke it for 5 minutes,
Right.
and then we'd sit it down. We'd pick up the second cigar, and we'd smoke it for 5 minutes and sit it down. We'd pick up the third cigar and do that.
Right.
And then
So you had a 10-minute gap.
5 minutes each way,
Right.
right? And so in doing that, I was right.
The number you have dialed has been changed. The new number is... Please note, the new number is...
I just want to say that for the camera. I was right.
We're right about what? I'm waiting to hear what you said.
It lasted on average about 12 and a half minutes.
Yeah.
Now his didn't, but I think he just didn't smoke it good enough. I think it was user error, and he was like light puffing it so it would
Well,
go
we
out.
also say, like, with that kind of test, it only works with cigars that are, like, typically, you can't do it with really narrow ring gauge cigars, but if it's like a typical Robusto or a Toro format, I like the cigar to be able to maintain its burn, its combustion, for sitting for at least 7, 8, 9 minutes. To me, that's an indication of a really well-made cigar. And it's not even just well-made cigar. It's also the tobaccos are properly fermented and cured and ready to go. And it's something that I pay attention to. It's like I said, I call it the piss test. Pull into a gas station, I lay my cigar down on the bumper, I start the gas pump, I go in, I take a piss. That's where the piss test comes from. I go buy some sunflower seeds,
Right.
beef jerky Slurpee. I pay, I come back out, I put the thing back in the rack, and then is my cigar still smoking? Do I have to relight it? And if I don't, it passes the piss test.
Right? And it passes.
Yeah.
And I know you were talking about You have to have a special time to smoke the Sin Compromiso. I would smoke the Sin Compromiso in a Porta John. I could, and you know, price point is everybody has budgets, but that cigar is
Yeah, but
just
so like a Sin Compromiso is what, a $17 cigar roughly, 17, 18? Like I tell people I wouldn't smoke a Sin Compromiso if it's like really windy outside, because so much of the experience is having that aroma of the smoke wafting around you. So I think it's kind of getting wasted. Where if you're smoking a Mi Querida, you can smoke that in a typhoon, right?
right.
But I think with certain cigars, that extra envelope, that bubble of the smoke around you, adds so
Absolutely.
much more to the
Absolutely.
experience. So,
Absolutely.
but again, that's just my personal opinion. You
No,
know?
I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. But if I want excellent opportunities to smoke cigars, I want to put myself in the environment. But if I'm somewhere that's not a perfect environment, I still want to smoke a great cigar.
So I actually skimmed through your video of your bracket thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was surprised that Sin
So much
came
bracket.
out. I was surprised Sin got #1 in that. I didn't expect that to happen.
I think it was because I think Papa would have taken it if Papa had been out as long as Sin. I think only having a year of Papa.
Right. So you think that because you were basically polling the 50 or 60 viewers that were watching live, right? And that was how you were determining whether they moved on to the bracket. And did your vote have a heavier weight than theirs?
No, same way.
So you counted as one and you counted as one.
And we disagreed almost every time.
Yeah.
But it was funny, out of all the brackets, your bracket was the tightest. Every single one, they were just neck and neck.
Yeah. But that's true too with our sales. You know, most companies have what we call a hero product. Most companies, they have one or two things that are like 50, 60, even sometimes 70% of their sales. Our worst selling brands, 12% of the sales. Our best selling brands, 18% of the sales. We have it's very evenly divided, which is really strange. You know, most companies, it isn't like that. I mean, we can all think about, we start looking about companies I can name, oh, these are the 2-3 best brands from here, and these are the 2-3 best cigars from there. For us, it really depends on what you like to smoke, determines what's best. You know?
I can see that. But it's quality all the way through.
Yeah, it's all the same.
You're going to get a good experience. You just get to tailor the experience to what you want to take.
It's a question of what type of flavor, what type of strength that you personally enjoy. But there's no quality difference between the lines. The only one is, I mean, Umbagogs are on the lower end, not cigar smoking wise, but the materials aren't as crisp in Umbagog as they are in some of those cigars, but it's priced accordingly, right? But yeah, the difference between the cost of a Sobremesa Brulee and a Sin Compromiso is just because it costs more to make the other. But there's no less attention to detail that goes into a Brulee than what goes into a Sin Compromiso.
And now you changed the name of the Sobremesas.
Yeah, well, I just added the tagline Solita to it, because when we originally started the company, we had one brand, Sobremesa. And then once we added Sobremesa Brulee, it became hard to, like, how do you describe the original Sobremesa? So here's Sobremesa Brulee, and here's the old Sobremesa, the original Sobremesa. It's a little hard. So I wanted to basically say, okay, this is Sobremesa Brulee, so because it's that sweeter, milder kind of experience. So Sobremesa Solita, it's a made-up word. Just in Spanish, they add ita to anything to mean familiar or small.
All right.
So I basically, because it's a sun-grown wrapper, but it's Ecuador sun-grown, and in Ecuador you have really heavy cloud cover. So it's sun-grown, but it's really shade-grown because of the cloud cover, so it gets a little sun. So it's kind of like in between shade and sun-grown, so hence Solita. Little sun. Yeah.
That's awesome. Now, I'm smoking the new Bronzeback.
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
Yeah, so when most broadleaf cigars, so broadleaf isn't prime, broadleaf is stock cut. And typically at the midway point of the plant and all the way to the top is where almost all the broadleaf wrapper for the high-end broadleaf cigars comes from. It's and it's typically what we call, we classify them as mediums. Now, if you have a really heavy year, let me explain this better. So there's something that we call number one darks, right? That come off from broadleaf. But you don't get number one darks every year. If you have a year where the season is particularly dry and particularly hot, that growing season, those top 3 or 4 leaves will have a different texture and more flavor. And that's what we would classify as number 1 darks. But you can go 3 years and have no number 1 darks. Everything is mediums. So number 1 darks don't always happen. But what does always happen is the tobacco from about the third of the stalk up to the halfway point is what we classify as 2LSs, okay? And 2LSs, when you put them in the polones to ferment them, sometimes they turn really dark. Sometimes they turn almost like a ruddy brown kind of Colorado color. So that doesn't work because the broadleaf guys all want super uber dark, right? So it doesn't work. The other thing about the 2LSs is they don't taste the same. They don't have the same sweetness. They don't have the same earthiness. But what the 2LSs have is they have a more peppery, sharper kind of nature. So the thing is, what most manufacturers do with the 2LSs is they take that tobacco and then they cook it in a caldera to turn it really black. But it sucks out all the pepper, okay? Because when you cook the tobacco like that, it just basically makes it aesthetically very pleasing, but it saps the flavor out of it. But that's what they end up using when you buy those Connecticut broadleaf bundle cigars that you see for $4 or $5 a piece. Almost always, those are 2LSs that have been cooked. They'll never tell you that out loud, right? But that's what it is. There's no free ride on the pony, okay? So if the price is this, it means the materials had to be that.
Right.
Now, in the late 80s and early 90s, there was one brand that used to use 2LSs naturally fermented, and it didn't matter that they weren't as attractive. Didn't matter that they didn't get to the color. Sometimes they were lighter, sometimes they were darker, but they had a very distinct, that kind of peppery nuance. And I figured, you know what? I really used to enjoy that cigar. They don't make it anymore that way. The brand is still around, but the materials are totally different today. I'm like, you know what? I like it. Let me put it on Umbagog. Let's see what consumers think about it. And that's what's on the bronze back, is the naturally fermented 2LSs. And when you get these initial ones, the wrapper's going to be quite dark because these first ones naturally fermented quite dark. But over time, you're going to get some that are going to be lighter and some that are going to be darker. But it isn't really the color of the wrapper that's the distinguishing factor. It's that more leaner, racier, more peppery, more spicy nature with less sweetness and less earthiness. That's a good thing or a bad thing, depending on your perspective.
Right.
But it's definitely a different experience. And it's the reason why, I mean, I called it bronze back, but we also added bronze to the bands. So that way consumers, when they buy and they have it in their humidor, they know that, okay, this is the one that's the one with the 2LS. It's the spicier wrapper. So we'll see. I'll be really interested to hear what the feedback is. I'm sure there's going to be some consumers that say they like the bronze back better than any of the other Umbagogs. There's going to be other people that are going to say, no, it's not as good as regular Umbagog.
I'm looking forward to, I'm going to have to get my hands on some and do a side-by-side.
Yeah.
I think that would be an interesting video. I know I would do it just for myself personally.
Right.
Just so that I can really see the differences and enjoying it that way. And now we have to talk about the 500-pound gorilla in the room. You have a Lancero sampler.
Yeah.
All I know is from the pictures.
Yeah.
Are these older blends, different blends?
So what it is, so when I was making the Lancero from Western to Saka, I made about 63 different blends. Ultimately, one of them got selected to be the Now Leave Me the Hell Alone. Of those 63, there were other ones that were good, but they just didn't ultimately make it. And there were different variations of them. It wasn't like I made one and then tweaked it and made one and tweaked it. There were ones with different wrappers and different fillers, and I kind of had simultaneously like 10, 12 different things going on. So what I did is, so I just went back to my original notes and like, okay, which were the standouts that I thought were good or that were unique or that were interesting that didn't make the final one to go in the box? And I just said, okay, I have all my blending notes from 5 years ago, 6 years ago. Let's remake these 14 of them. And I went back and I re-smoked them, and I picked, of the 14, I picked the 8 that I thought were the most interesting. For some people, they're going to smoke. So in the Lancero collection, you have one Now Leave Me Alone, which is the first one. And then you have 8 cigars that are labeled number 2 through number 9. And what those are is those are blends that I created back then that I revisited, and then just basically curated the 8 that I thought that were the most interesting and different, so the consumer could have a different kind of Lancero experience. You may smoke the number 6 and say that should have been the Now Leave Me Alone. You may smoke the 4 and say the 4 is the best. I don't know. So those are all kind of like work that was done in the past that's just never been shared. The only Lancero in the box that's like totally fresh that I worked on for the collection was the Candela one, because I never made a Candela anything because I don't like Candela.
Right.
So I made a special because I just wanted to put the GFY on something, and
Right.
you know my love for Lanceros, you know my love for Candela. I can't think of a cigar better to brand as the Go F Yourself cigar. You know.
Are you ready for the floodgates to open and people say, well, can you just make a line extension of all your other cigars and make them all Lanceros? Sin Compromiso Lancero.
Well, here's the problem. When you do that, I always often feel like it's just people mailing it in. Because look, most of these blends, a lot of these blends don't translate well to other sizes. Do you notice that there is no, like one of the most popular sizes is a 60 ring gauge cigar, right? There is no 60 ring gauge cigar in BK Rita.
Because it didn't work?
Because it just doesn't work well. It works well in 56. I like the blend in 64. The 60 just seems a little dull and flat. So even though the 60 I know is the best seller, I don't make it. Okay? It's the same thing when we launched Sin Compromiso and we're doing the whole line. I was never happy with the Robusto. So I just said, okay, we're going to launch a line without a Robusto, which is stupid, right? Because it's Robusto, Toro, Gordo. Those are the selling sizes. And I had the intent that, okay, I can't have it ready for the release year, but I'll work on it and I'll fix it. And then next year, but that was 5 years ago, I never went back to it. Well, this year I went back to it because we had the short trade show schedule. So I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm finally going to fix the Robusto blend and Sin Compromiso, get it to where I feel like it's box worthy. So to me, when you just say, oh, I'm going to make a Sober Mesa Lancero, I'm just going to make a Mi Querida Lancero, I don't think that actually works. I don't think it's possible to distill the flavors of these cigars that have a regular Sober Mesa has 7 tobaccos in it. What are you supposed to do with a
Where are you going to put them?
Where are you going to put them? You can only put 1 filler and maybe a tiny strip of another filler. So you have 2 filler ingredients at most to put in a 38 ring gauge cigar. That's all the space you've got. So how do you recreate the Sober Mesa experience in a Lancero? So to me, it seems lazy that you just like, well, this brand is popular, so therefore I'm going to make a Lancero and just put this brand name on it. It's just not my style.
I knew that Lanceros were difficult, and they also, people don't pick them up much off the shelves.
No.
But I didn't know, I didn't think of the process of you've got such a tight, small spot, and then you're trying to.
Yeah, with the Lanceros, like the other thing too is not only do you have a very limited palette tobacco-wise, but you also have a problem where you can't do any like unique positioning of tobacco. So you front load, you back load, you take the tips and you move them. You take the butts, you drop the butts out. I put a little bit more of the butt of the leaf here. You can't do that in a Lancero. So there's no like little tricks that you can do in the bunching, okay, to position that tobacco to change the experience, because there's not physically enough room for you to do all those little tricks of the trade to make the blend more interesting. So for me, I always look at, and I've said it out loud many, many times. I've never made a Lancero that I didn't think I could make better as a Lonsdale. Because if I go up to like that 44 ring gauge, I got some room to play with. You know what I mean? I can expand the menu of ingredients. I can now start playing with the position of the tobacco in the cigar. You don't have that in a Lancero. And so when you blend Lanceros, I know that people wax poetic about it, but it's really like ordering like 3 columns, A, B, and C. Put A with B, put B with C, put C with A. You know what I mean? It's really very simplistic.
All right. Now, as I'm smoking this back, and I didn't not expect this to happen. I know there's a spiciness to it. I know there's a fullness to it. But usually in the world of cigars, that when you get a fuller cigar, a spicier cigar, you have to trade that flavor for your finish.
Right.
You get that grittiness. You get
Yeah.
that I need to drink something.
Yeah, but I don't
need
tend to
wash
make
it out.
cigars like that.
It doesn't do
So
that.
even when I make strong cigars, I don't tend to make super sharp so when I say something's more peppery, it's more peppery, but it's not. I don't like cigars that irritate my throat or irritate my sinuses. That's not. Look, there's plenty of companies that make that style cigar, and there's plenty of consumers that love that super high octane kind of almost bite is important to them. I don't tend to make biting cigars. It's just not the style of cigar that I like to smoke, so I don't make them. I'm not saying I won't ever. I'm not saying that I haven't in the past, but I don't really have anything in the portfolio. Like probably the strongest, most biting thing we have is probably in Tricky Traca and like the 448. Right, the 448 in Tricky Traca, that's a pretty potent little smoke, right? But as a general rule of thumb, I don't tend to make that style of cigar.
Now, on a personal note, we had the Dunbarton girls and the first lady on one of the Chief Talks,
Yeah, how'd that go?
and it was fantastic.
I haven't watched that.
But I wrote down a ton of notes, and luckily I saw that you were out of country because I was going to send you a message say, "Do you want to come on and do a rebuttal the next day or the next week?" And I don't know what that would have done to the house, but it would have been good.
I'll
video.
do it. What the hell?
It was
We've
something.
been married 40 years. She ain't leaving me. She ain't left me by now. There's nothing I can say.
But they spoke very well. You could see the love they have for the company and also the respect and the love they have for you.
Yeah.
And so
It's mutual.
it was. You can see the G and Hall between all y'all.
We have a great little company. We really do. It's
But she did make one mistake on the video.
Oh, what did she say?
She said that, and my wife was there, and me and Steven just kind of shut up and backed out.
Right.
And Cindy was talking about y'all used to do 4th of July ice cream socials.
Yes.
But because of PCA,
Yes.
you can't do it. But this year you're doing ice cream socials. And Sarah goes, "Really?" And your wife said, "Yeah, you ought to come up." So I've already got my plane tickets.
Oh, are you coming?
So we're
That'd be awesome.
we're gonna come and hang out at the
Yeah.
house we're gonna
Yeah.
go up there for 4 or 5 days.
Yeah, because it's legal in New Hampshire to have fireworks.
all right.
Right. So we would always on 4th of July, we just do fireworks in the front yard, and we just rather than doing a big barbecue, we just we call it an ice cream social. Just some ice cream, a bunch of sundae toppings. Everybody makes their own sundae. Then you kick back, smoke some cigars, and watch the fireworks.
Sounds like a great time.
Yeah, we really missed it, but the trade show for all these years, it's been getting in the way because they kept doing it right around the 4th of July, and it was not possible. So that's a Saka family tradition that is going to be revived this year.
Well, we're sneaking in.
You're welcome to it.
So, and the trade show's going
We'll
to
make it an open invitation. I don't give a rat's ass. But don't expect to be entered. You're going to come, you eat your ice cream, you watch the fireworks, and then you're going home.
And you're going home.
Yeah,
That's right.
yeah.
So we already got our hotel
Yeah,
reservations, I
so
think, and so
if
we're
you
good.
think you're going to come for some big fancy Drew Estate thing or Eric Espinosa, what's that, Zonapalooza?
Zonapalooza.
That ain't it, man.
That ain't it.
It's ice cream, it's fireworks, smoke star, get the hell out.
Sounds like a plan. They're doing PCA in Vegas or in New Orleans next year.
Yep.
Somebody was talking about it, and I never thought about it.
It's okay.
You're so popular, and all these booths. You have to break them down,
Yeah.
and then you have to ship them there and store them there, or
Yeah, I think everyone's doing something different. Like, there's a lot of stuff in this booth I'm throwing away because I am not paying to send my Bob's discount furniture to New Orleans. You know, it's going to be a little bit, look, transitioning to a new city logistically is a real pain in the neck.
is this something they're going to do every year? Is it going to be a
I hope the
flip-flop,
hell
or
not.
do you like it being in March?
No, March is too early. I mean, but look, this is the time they had. It's a little too soon. Because look, retailers, no matter where you are in the country with a few exceptions, Southern California, Arizona, Florida, it's their slow season. So as a trade show buying customer, this is a tough time to come and do a trade show because you just don't have the dollars that you would have in July. The problem with July is it's almost too late in the season because by the time the new products get delivered, it's October, November,
You're starting to
and
slow
you're
down.
already going into your slowdown period. So it would always be better for it to be in the spring. I mean, if I could just, this is the perfect date, it would be like the second week of May. That would be like the perfect. right? But you also have to work with the trade show, the convention space, the cities. Where can you get a place where you can bring 5,000 cigar smokers? Not an easy thing to do. So this year we're here end of March, a little too early. Next year it's like mid-April, I think, right? The second week of April, much better. So the other thing too is, this year, because of them moving into April, we were just here in July, so we only had 8 months, and it isn't enough time. So I have no idea what everybody's doing release-wise. Maybe they planned for it and they were working, but for me, this was a total mad scramble. And that's why when you look at what we're doing this year, I know it isn't very sexy, but it's just kind of the knick-knacky, you know what I mean? Oh, I missed the Robusto, let me do that. Let's take one of the most popular Stillwell aromatic blends, let's make that full-time available. You know what I mean? Because I also had to look at the timetable. It's nice that there's a deadline, but I don't want to just have a product to meet a deadline. You want the product to be right. And I couldn't make a whole new brand to be right.
Well, you can't make a cigar in 2 weeks.
No.
I mean, it takes years.
Yeah, well, like I said, we were rolling Wagashis back in Q4 2022. So here it is next month. What is that? That's like almost 15 months from when we started before most customers are ever going to try a Wagashi. So it's a very long lead item kind of scenario. So we have to accommodate that.
Last year, we had, and I hope it continues to be a trend. I hope I get to keep coming back and you allow me to be here. But when we closed, I said, do you have any wisdom to share with people? Saka wisdom.
What did
wisdom
it say?
last year was, you're going to die.
Yes.
Smoke your cigars.
Yes.
So
it's still good advice.
Yeah, but you used that one last year. You don't get a pass. You got to come up with something else.
Fresh every year?
Every dang year.
Oh, dude. I got to think about this, putting me on the spot like this.
No.
Yeah, man. Do you think those types of gems of wisdom just come out of my butt?
Well, hopefully the microphone stays up here, but yeah, I think you got a ton of wisdom and knowledge in there.
I think, and you've heard this said, it gets said all the time, but I think a lot of times, I mean, we're always so enamored with what's new that there's a lot of really good stuff, and there's a reason why it's been on the shelf for as long as it's been. So, and not just with our line, because we're a relatively new company. Next year will be our 10th anniversary, but yeah, the media isn't writing much about it. People aren't talking as much, because you got to understand the media is driven by clicks and views, so new material is always the most interesting. But there's a lot of really interesting, great cigars out there that I think as a cigar smoker, I think it's worth kind of dipping back. If you find a brand that you really, really like, My Father, for example, go back to some of those early things that they don't talk about much, but it's on the shelf for a reason. It's a really good cigar. And I mean, I feel that way about our Sober Mesa Salida. I think it's already being... next year's going to be its 10th anniversary, and I think that, cigar consumers don't really think about this, but very few brands make it to 10 years. Actual cigars. I mean, look, the company's still around. They're still making something. But most stuff lasts 2, 3, 4 years at the most, and then it's gone to be replaced. So when there's something that's been hanging around, there's a reason why an Arturo Fuente Don Carlos that was introduced in the late 80s, early 90s, it's still there on the shelf. So, I mean, I know people aren't writing big fancy articles, there aren't a lot of clicks, and it doesn't get any reviews on the media, but you're really doing yourself a disservice as a cigar smoker. If you haven't tried that cigar, you should go and try that cigar. So I don't think that's as good as my wisdom last year, but
that's pretty good, though.
You put me on the spot.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Makes me think of Mama's Chicken Soup.
Yeah.
Because I can have Mama's Chicken Soup from when I was a kid, and I'll still want Mama's Chicken Soup. I don't have to go with something new every time I sit down to eat. And cigars have that flavor and that experience as well. So, and the Sober Mesa Elegante and Cedro is still,
it's a great cigar.
Still my jam.
Yeah.
It was hard not to put it on my list this year, but you got like 5 spots this year.
A lot.
So
thank you.
And you earned them. You earned every last one of them. It wasn't platitudes or any of that garbage.
Yeah,
it just washed out.
So you have a different style. There's some media websites that are very critical. There's some guys that their whole point is to almost be bombastic, to be counter. right? That's how they generate their clicks and their views, right? And then there's other people like you that like, okay, I'm only going to talk about the cigars that I really like. I'm going to choose to focus on the positive things. Okay, it's not that you just like everything. Okay, it's just you choose not to talk about the things that you don't like, and you choose to talk about the things that you do like. So, as a viewer, as a cigar smoker, you kind of got to gauge that with every particular site as to how they generate their media content, and it kind of gives you a frame of reference. So, but yeah, that was a lot of spots on your list. It was a lot.
And they were all, I mean,
Yeah.
I was sitting down and I went through my list like 50 times. I started off with every cigar I smoked that I had listed, and then I broke that down to, I got rid of some of the ones, and then it just kept choking down, and it just kept popping up. It just kept, you know.
And I've noticed that, recently we have a lot of cigar smokers that they just smoke an awful lot of our cigars on the regular and kind of across the spectrum, because I think part of the thing too is because we have so many different styles that there's something when they want something milder, and there's something when they want something a little more balanced and elegant, and there's something when they want something a little rougher and a little fuller flavor. So we have something in these individual kind of categories that can satisfy that kind of desire or moment, and that's not true with all the companies. You know what I mean? Some yes, but not a lot no. And that's one of the things that I think makes us a bit unique, particularly for the size of company we are. The breadth of the portfolio that we have it's pretty. If you start to actually think about it and look, it's really quite a spectrum of cigars that we manufacture. So but that's always been the goal, because I'm the same way. Sometimes I want this, sometimes I want that.
Right.
Sometimes I want a chili dog, sometimes I want lobster thermidor. Two totally different experiences.
Right.
I love them both, right?
Right.
But one, in my opinion, isn't better than the other. Depends on what I'm in the mood for.
Absolutely. A steak is never good if you want pizza.
Right,
Right.
exactly.
Right. And it was interesting when Steven did the bracket, and Chief came up with that all by himself. He pitched it to me that night or the week before, and I'm sitting there going, I don't know how this is gonna flesh out. And he took over and he just ran that thing, and I was impressed with the Dunbarton bracket, how it was passionate. People were commenting. People were I mean, they had a personal connection with your product.
Yeah.
It's just because you're just so lovable.
Yeah, that's it.
That's what it is.
Yeah, it's my lovable nature
That's right.
and my stunning good looks.
That's right. Swarthy guy. So I know you got other people you need to talk to.
Yeah.
So we're gonna get off of here, and this
right.
couch is the most comfortable couch that I've sat in.
Yeah, well, that's
all
one
day.
thing we're good. If you look around, we don't have the fanciest booth in the show, but we have the most comfortable furniture. I mean, even that, we got big boy chairs for you to sit on when you're writing an order. You know what I mean? It's definitely Saka approved
Absolutely.
kind of furniture here.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because most of these booths you go into, it's like having a stick up your butt, right? When you sit on the little stool they give you.
And it wobbles.
Yeah, it's terrible.
And then you wonder, am I about to have a YouTube moment?
Yeah.
Right. So thank you so much for letting me hang out with you for a while.
No, thank you.
And
Appreciate the love, appreciate the support, appreciate what you guys do.
Absolutely.
Yeah, even the guy behind the camera that you don't even let any FaceTime.
No. he's the guy he's the handler. I'm the talent.
Oh.
So that's
Is that the way this is?
That's the way it sounds. So at least this weekend. Now the rest of our year, not so much.
Yeah.
But yeah. But good stuff. So I'm telling this thing right here, it's all right. I can't wait to do a review on it on both of them side by side.
Cool.
I'm being interested. So fantastic.
All right. God bless you, man.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.